I'm going to give you a quick refresher on casting on for your foundation and then knitting. The next class we will do a refresher of casting on if you need it, and knitting, as well as answer any questions you may have. And if you're ready, we'll progress into purling stitch. But for right now, we're going to do the basics of casting on and knitting. Now, this casting on is similar to creating a foundation for a building. And if you've ever walked by a construction site or read about it, you'll see them digging in the ground and creating this foundation for a sturdy, strong building. What we're going to do is create a sturdy foundation for your knitting. You take your yarn, bring it over the palm of your hand, and if you're left-handed, just reverse these instructions. I will say that I am both left and right-handed. I make this particular video for the knitted cast on right-handed because a majority of my knitters are left and right-handed knit or cast on using their right hand. It's not always the case, and that I'm not saying that that's your situation, but this is how I normally do it. If you need a cast on video specifically for left-handed casting on, I will be so happy to do that and make it for you. So right now you take the yarn, bring it over the palm of your right hand, your thumb is your anchor, take your free hand or your left hand, and you're going to grab, I'm showing the back of my hand just so you can see what I'm talking about, grab the yarn just gingerly, nice and softly, but you want to hold your yarn and your knitting as if you are holding a book. So it should always be somewhat like this, palms up. Grasp your yarn, wrap your index finger 3 times, and this strand is my first strand, second strand, and third strand. Pinch and pick up your first strand, bring it over the second strand. Okay? Pinch your second strand. Oops, my third strand fell off. That's okay. There's no hard and steady rule about this. I use my thumb to hold it in place. So now I take my second strand and bring it over my third strand. Pinch the third strand nice and tight, hold on to it. Scoot the other yarn off your index finger or ask for help. And now you have this little pretzel. So what we're going to do with the little pretzel and the yarn is reach for knitting needle. Take the knitting needle and put it through the loop. You still have your pretzel. So now hold the 2 tails. I'll move this yarn off my lap. Oops. Hold your 2 tails and pull. I usually pull towards the ceiling, but for the video I'll do it this way. Now you have a short tail and a long tail. The short tail you're going to pull as much as you can. Your long tail you're going to pull and pull and pull until, and that's your working yarn, until the slip knot reaches your needle. Now you don't want to pull so hard that it strangles the yarn. You want it to just hug the needle. Okay, so I should be able to move it around easily. Now I'm going to reach for my other knitting needle. Now you may have noticed I'm using these little short stubby needles, and I'm doing it for 2 reasons. 1, for the purpose of the video, and 2, I wanted a fatter needle so that in the video you can easily see the yarn as it's wrapped around the knitting needle. Now what you have and what you've borrowed from the library are size 8 needles. These needles are a little bit fatter than yours, so don't worry. What you have is perfect. It's exactly what you should have. These are maybe size 11 or size 12 knitting needles. These are also double pointed, you may have noticed. And for some of you who are advanced, or your moms and dads who knit, these are double pointed needles that they would know about. Now, if you have little tiny fingers, or moms and dads, you have little tiny fingers out there, and the knitting needles you have are too long, then you can always get these double pointed needles a little bit fatter and get masking tape and wrap the ends until you have a nice little fat little ball on the end, and then those can be knitting needles for tiny hands. And if that's the case, just have them cast on 10 stitches. So what we're going to do is, when you're knitting and when you're creating the knitted cast on, you want to knit from your left hand, left needle, or left hand onto your right hand and right needle. You take your right needle, you come in through the stitch. Now I should note to you that the stitch is not circular. Did you know that? It's actually tear shape or almond shape. So it's got a little tiny area between the knot and the needle. And that's awesome. So we're going to take this, because then the knitting needle just fits in there as if it was meant to be, in the same loop as the first knitting needle. So now you have 2 knitting needles in the same loop. And if you remember yesterday, I said you get up in the morning, which is this needle, and you get dressed. So you can either wrap from the front to the back or the back to the front. They're both fine. What we're going to do is we will wrap this way, this time. Then you're going to shrink down as if you're Alice in Alice in Wonderland, and you have to shrink down so you can get through the door. So you're going to get through the door, and as you do so, you're pushing the yarn, if you can see that, through the loop. See there, on the other, out to the other side, and pull through, and then bring onto your left needle. I said to some of you, this is as if you're laying a cake. It's also, I like to say it this way. So you get up in the morning, now you have 2 strands. You want your thumb to always cover all the strands of yarn. You could have 100 strands on here, and you want your thumb to be over all of them except the very first strand. So right now we only have 2 strands. Take your knitting needle, come in from the bottom of the loop on the very top strand, or loop, or stitch, whichever term you use. And you're going to wrap your needle, either front or back, or this way. You choose. Whichever way you choose, that's the way you want to knit the entire row. I just switched, I know. And I'm going to switch over, because I actually always wrap. Now I have 3 strands. My thumb covers all the strands except the top one. I come in from the bottom, and I wrap, as I was beginning to say, usually from the back to the front. That's my choice. But you may choose differently, and that is absolutely fine. You're going to push the stitch through, come out through the other side, bring towards you, and put back on the needle. So as a teacher, what I say is this. Now I have 4 stitches. Put my thumb on top of all my stitches except the top stitch. As a teacher, I say, get up in the morning, get dressed, scoot down, because you want to shrink so you can walk through the door. See how I'm pushing through? You're not twisting, you're not turning, as if you're bowing. You're pushing the needle through, and there you come through. And then the student, or the kid, I call this stitch, is now going to join his classmates in class. So we're going to get up and get ready and go to school, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 kids are in class. So we're going to get up in the morning, get dressed, scoot down so we can go out the door, because we're growing and growing and growing, and bring the stitch towards you, and now the stitch is joining all the others in class. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 is next. This is 7, and you push through, and there you go. And then pick up, push through, push 8, okay? Pick up, push through, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. We wrap, go through the door, pull the yarn towards you, and back on the left needle. And now we should have 10. 2, 4, well, let me start over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what happens when you go too fast sometimes. I need 1 more student before we can start classes. So we have 9 stitches, or 9 students. I'm going to get up in the morning, get dressed, shrink, walk through the door so we can go to school, and the 10 students on their way to class. So back on the left needle, and as you notice, I pull the right needle out. Every single time you pull it out, so every time you're casting on, your right needle when you're done is bare. There's nothing on your needle. Now that we've cast on, this is the knitted cast on, or cast on stitch. So now we're going to knit. Take your right needle, come in from the bottom, because we created the foundation. It's nice and strong and sturdy, like all the foundations that construction workers build for buildings. And now we're going to begin to build. Let's add some stitches. Now what you may have noticed that these stitches, which are my cast on row, they're facing towards the right. Okay? That's what you want. So facing towards the right. Now what we're going to do is get up in the morning, get dressed, shrink, push through, and I realize why I didn't tell you why. I didn't tell you why they're facing towards the right. I'll tell you that in a moment. And then you're going to take your stitch and let that go to school. Okay? Actually, summer vacation's coming, so let's go on summer vacation. We're going to go to the beach. So now the reason why the stitches are facing towards the right is because, again, each of the stitches are tear shape or teardrop shape. On both needles, you can see one is almond or teardrop shape, and so is the other. They're not circular. And because they're facing right, which is this one here, this needle can easily come in. You can introduce it quite easily. Wrap, dip, pushing through, and then off to the beach. So you get up in the morning. We've had a whole year of school and classes. Everybody's in class, and now we have spring break, and now we are going out the door and going wee off to the beach. Get up in the morning, get dressed, drop a little tiny bit, see, push through, and off to the beach. Get up in the morning, wrap, because you want to get dressed, and you're going to push. See how the needles maintain contact? It's so much easier when you have your right needle touching your left needle and they push all the way through. If you do that, your stitch will not come off. So again. Now, how I'm knitting, as you notice, I'm using my right hand a lot to wrap and drop the needle and push through. This is called right-handed knitting. It is what is most commonly found in the United States. It comes to us from Great Britain, and it's only found in 7 countries around the world, and that's South Africa, Pakistan, India, Canada, England, and the US. I think I'm missing a country. So let's see, South Africa, Canada, India, Pakistan, the US, and England. And actually, I'm wrong. It's only 6 countries around the world that it's found. So it is one of the slowest ways to knit around the world, but it is also the most visible, and it's the easiest, it's the best way to learn as a new knitter. Some of you yesterday in class, I noticed, knit a little bit left-handed. And that could be because your grandmother or your mother or your dad or somebody who knits. And I say dads because in the States, it's usually girls and moms, but there are a lot of dads who knit. And in Europe, it's very, very normal for boys to knit. There's a lot of algebra in knitting, a lot of engineering in knitting, a lot of math in knitting, believe it or not. You're doing math, so don't think about it, don't worry about it. You're doing something awesome. Whatever you knit, it's yours, it's fantastic, and that's the most important part. It is all you. We're going to add some more rows. I'm going to add one more row of right-handed knitting, and then I want to talk about left-handed knitting for those knitters yesterday who knit left-handed. And what I saw yesterday for both right-handed and left-handed knittings was absolutely fantastic. You are all wonderful, wonderful knitters. You should pat yourselves on the back for such a wonderful accomplishment. And for some of you who want, or maybe stopped and you went to go look for a book to read, which I love libraries, they're the best. Aren't they the coolest? And your librarian, she is like so awesome. You're so lucky. So if that happened, just know that this video is here for you. And the next time you come to knitting class, I will be happy to help you get where you need to be. But I bet you have like the most awesome grandmother and mom and dad and grandfather who may knit, who can help you get back on track, either by using this video or by sitting next to someone you care for. So my grandmother taught me how to knit when I was 7 years old. And my mother also taught me how to knit when I was a little bit older, when I had questions. So I call it elbow knitting, because I would sit next to my mom and I'd say, Mom, wait, what did I do wrong? Help, help, I dropped a stitch, I need help. I call it elbow knitting to this day, because even us moms and grandmothers, we have some problems with our knitting and we need help. So just know that if you have a problem with your knitting, you're not alone and you did nothing wrong. We just need to figure out where you are. But if you find you drop a stitch or there was a boo-boo somewhere, I strongly urge you and your moms and dads and grandmas and granddads and everybody who knits that you know, knit through it. Don't worry about it, because as a new knitter, if you take it apart and start again, it becomes more difficult to actually create or finish your project. Finish your first project, even if it has boo-boos in it, because you know what? Those are your signatures. That's what makes it perfect and special, just as special and as perfect as you are. So, last row. This is for left-handed knitters. And what I saw yesterday was knitting needle comes in, pick up, they wrap and pull it through. So again, come in from the bottom, reach out. See how I'm doing that? Most of you did this already know how to do this. Wrap this, pull it through. This is called Continental Knitting. So as you can see, I'm coming in. The yarn doesn't move so much, except it kind of goes around the needle. See that? And you pull it through. As if Alice is putting her hand through the rabbit hole. She's going in the rabbit hole and she's grabbing the rabbit and she's saying, "Hi, rabbit." It comes out. Go in, grabs the rabbit. "Hi, rabbit." Goes in. Does that make sense? If this doesn't make sense, or you need a more concise or clear video, I'm happy to do that. Just let Miss Bateman know, and Miss Marissa, she's a librarian, she's awesome. And I'm certain she'll be more than happy to email me, and I will respond to your questions. And I hope that you all have a lovely day. I wish you a wonderful, happy day of knitting. Okay, so keep knitting. Now, again, it would be get up in the morning and wrap. Now, the project you're working on is the garter stitch scarf. That would be the important part of this conversation. You're going to knit, as you may have heard me say, until the cows come home. You just knit and knit and knit and knit. Every single